So since the last video of the Overgeared Racing Tamiya Spec Class build, there's been some questions. What's allowed, what's not allowed. Hopefully this video will clarify some of those things. Yeah, that's the intention. So first thing to state is what parts can and cannot be used. Anything that's not Tamiya, unless otherwise stated, cannot be used. So I've got another TT02 here. This is my drift chassis, by the way. So it's got the racing suspension in the back, racing suspension in the front, racing Ackerman. It's got 3 racing or racing shocks. And it also has Traxxas wheel adapters. Even has a Racing motor mount and a Racing spur gear adapter with a Robinson Racing 48 pitch spur gear.
Tamiya only.
And as mentioned by the Hulk, none of that is allowed. It's got to be Tamiya suspension, Tamiya upgraded parts that are used for its intended purpose. So again, no Racing stuff, no Traxxas stuff, no 48 pitch Kimbrough spur gears. It's all got to be Tamiya. As an example, so we've got the spur gear adapter here. This is a Tamiya spur gear adapter. All Tamiya gears for the TT02 are a 0.6 mod. So they're not 48 pitch, they're not 32 pitch, they are 0.6. So it's a metric style of pitch, which meshes well with the Tamiya gears. The Racing one was nice. It is nice, because I can use my 48 pitch and my 64 pitch, which is more common. But for this class, it's got to be the Tamiya stuff. And a lot of this stuff is readily available at any of your local stores that carry Tamiya parts. They're very prevalent. Okay? Other Tamiya parts that must be used in place of other stuff. So you saw that I put my TL01 shocks, which are Tamiya CVAs, onto this car. The problem is my TL01 now doesn't have any shocks. So I need to put shocks on that. I ended up getting this. I'm going to swap the shocks back and put this new set onto my TT02 race car. And what about bodies, you say? Hulk, what do you think?
Tamiya only.
So, as the Hulk mentioned, it's got to be a Tamiya body as well. Tamiya bodies are very scale, and they're very spec in terms of their weight. They're considerably heavier than a racing body, which would kind of even the playing field. If I put a lightweight Zoo racing body, for example, that onto a Tamiya TT02, not only would it be lighter, but if it was to go fast enough, it would actually provide a very significant advantage, which it goes against the whole spec racing thing, right? So examples of common Tamiya bodies right now are going to be like this one here. This is it's got express decals on it, but it's the, what is it? Acura TL. It's a little beat up. We've also got the Subaru BRZ. Got some JQ Racing stickers on there. And then we got my favorite, the BMW Z4. Don't know if I'm going to run this one, though. It kind of looks too pretty. But anyways, yeah, Tamiya bodies on these Tamiya spec cars. Please let us know if you can't get a Tamiya body. We can help you get one. Or you could use that beat up TL in the meantime. Now, what about using other Tamiya parts onto the TT02 chassis to make it work. Is that something that we can do in the Tamiya Spec class?
Tamiya only.
Yes, Hulk. But it's Tamiya only, but it's Tamiya only with the purpose that it was intended for. So, with that TT02, when I was building it, I did notice that the front suspension was identical to the rear suspension, and I had two fixed points on my rear suspension that I could utilize as hard points. Instantly, I thought, hey, let me just buy a second set of front suspension, and I'll create an ARS, an active rear, basically an active rear suspension, which on its own is pretty awesome. It's a really good technique, something I'd probably recommend if you're going to try to run the TT02 outside of this class. But within the rules, we cannot run front suspension in the rear. So that's a big no-no. Unfortunately, you got to put the rear suspension on the rear, keep the front suspension on the front. Another trick that I saw while I was building the car was with these plastic dog bones, why don't I create a DCJ? So I was ready to order TRF Tamiya 420 DCJ axles and TC01 DCJ shafts, and I was going to assemble them together and Frankenstein them and create a DCJ unit which would work in the front of the Tamiya. A DCJ is a double cardan joint. It's super efficient, way more efficient than the dog bones, and it's more efficient than the other hop-ups available as well. Big no-no. Can't do that. We can't Frankenstein suspension. We can't Frankenstein drive shafts. We got to use them for the intended purpose. So what is allowed is to utilize proper universal drive shafts. These ones have to be assembled, not DCJ, but they will be a bit more efficient than the dog bones. As you race these cars, if you start to rub and get into some battles, you may notice that if it's not properly shimmed out with O-rings, the dog bones could pop out. This will prevent that from happening because this is fixed inside the car, so it won't pop out unless you get into a catastrophic type of fender bender. Next, these low friction pivot balls on the front will help make that front just a little bit more smoother. You've got plastic ones stock. I think the plastic ones are fine, but this is an option that's available and it can be used for the intended purpose. That's the big thing. You have to use it for the intended purpose. Now for the rear, we can't use a Frankenstein ARS system, but we can buy upgraded rear hubs. Out of the box, your TT02 is going to have about half a degree of rear toe in. If you need a little bit more, if you need to increase that slip angle to stabilize your car, get these. 54733, that'll give you 3 degrees in the rear as opposed to 0.5. And that should stabilize the rear end if you need it. The final thing I'm going to talk about today is the power plants. So you can use the silver can brushed motor. You can also use the Riddy Spec motor. But if you want more power, you can't just change the silver can with a crazy powerful brushed stock motor that draws double the amperage. That's not allowed. You're also not allowed to swap out the fixed timing brushless system and put something like this in there. Something like this is gonna have adjustable timing. It'll draw way more current and generate way more power as well. And again, that goes against the whole intended purpose of Spec. So if you want to upgrade from your silver can, the options are Mabuchi, Johnson, Torque Tune, Sport Tune. Or you go into brushless, and the brushless model is going to be this one here. That is the Reedy Sonic 21.5 with a locked end bell. And you can tell it's a locked end bell because there's no timing options on the back. 0 options for timing, which means timing is not adjustable. On this thing, timing is super adjustable. So that's the way to go if you'd like to jump into brushless. And yeah, for brushed, this is not allowed. No. If you want to upgrade your brushless motor from a torque tune, you could get a sport tune. You might get an extra percent or two. But, you know, if you're ready to jump out of Silvercan, get into the Spec brushless. So you might be asking, what am I going to do with all these hop-ups that I showed you? I'm gonna enjoy them.